To start this project, first I built the Christmas light circuit on the breadboard. Here you see me transferring the circuit to a prototype board that will later be installed on the wreath as part of the decoration. Because the circuit is going to be part of the decorations, I decided to weave in some festive colored wire to connect the resistors to the LEDs. The wire I am using is out of a telephone cable, and the wire just happened to be red and green. This made wiring a little time consuming, but it was worth the extra effort for the end result. Once my circuit boards were done, it was time to prep the RAM chips. I found the easiest way to remove the stickers was to heat them with a heat gun. The heat loosens the glue and the stickers peel right off. The next step was to drill a hole in 20 chips to house the 20 LEDs that this Christmas light circuit is going to drive. After drilling the hole, I inserted a 5mm plastic LED holder and hot glued it into place. To wire the LEDs, I chose to use a small gauge solid core wire. I color coded the anode and cathode to make wiring everything together easier. I used red wire for the anode and green wire for the cathode. Time to cut the foam core board that is going to be the base of our wreath. I found that a stick of RAM made the best guide for making the circle the size that I wanted. After the center hole was cut, I laid out a test pattern. When I was happy with the look, I hot glued the RAM to the foam core board. I chose to do a perfect circle shape for my wreath. It has been suggested to me that if I staggered the outer edges a little bit, it might add some more natural wreath shape to the final product. When looking through scrap parts for ornaments, I found these hard drive arms that made a really cool star. I positioned the arms the way I wanted and then just hot glued the star together. I also had some stepper motors out of some hard drives that worked great as ornaments. While test fitting where the LEDs were going to go on the second layer of RAM chips, I also laid out where the circuit boards and battery were going to be located. I decided that at the bottom of the wreath they almost look like a Christmas bow. Now to trim the excess foam core from around the outside of the wreath. To help hold the wreath together and to protect the wiring on the back, I chose to cut another piece of foam core that I later velcro into place for easy access if any repairs should be needed. Now to insert the LEDs into the RAM chips and hot glue them into place. Next, I lay all 20 LEDs into place and get them ready to be wired on the back of the wreath. I hot glued the battery holder to a stick of RAM and then glued that stick of RAM into place. This was my starting point for gluing the rest of the second layer of RAM down. I put a layer of hot glue on the bottom of my circuit boards to make sure that they didn't short circuit on a stick of RAM underneath them. Then I cut a hole to run the wires through to the back of the wreath, and once I got the placement right, I hot glued the circuit board down. To run the wires for the LEDs to the back of the wreath, I poked a hole through the foam core with a small drill bit. After running the wire through, I glued the stick of RAM down. To connect all the LEDs to ground, I ran an 18 gauge solid core black wire around the wreath. At each point where the LED was, I whittled the cover off the black wire, twisted the green cathode wire to the ground wire, and then soldered it into place. Unfortunately, this is where my project had to be modified from the original plan. One of my two circuits stopped working. This forced me to run two LEDs in series to each output instead of just one LED. So instead of just connecting an output wire to an anode wire, I had to connect an output wire to an anode wire, disconnect the cathode wire from ground, and connect it to another anode wire on the other side of the wreath. But I got to keep the second cathode grounded, so not all of my meticulous work was for naught. Here you see all 20 LEDs finally wired and working. Time to glue down the final touches. Now to proudly display my CHIPSmas wreath. Thanks for watching, and please be sure to subscribe to our channel.